Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tarot and Attachment. My name is Erin Smith. I haven't done one of these for a little bit, and that is because I was traveling, and then when I returned, I got really sick. So I've been out of commission for a little bit, but I thought that it was time to check in with cards, particularly in light of what went down the end of this last week. So I know for myself, I've been feeling despair, despondency, fear of a kind of impending darkness that it's hard to know exactly all the ways that people will be impacted by the legislation that was just passed, but I can't imagine that any of it is going to come to any good for the vast majority of people, specifically so many people getting kicked off of their health care. And this massive transference of wealth from people who are struggling financially to people who absolutely don't need any further assistance ever for lifetimes. And it's easy to get really captured by that anger, resentment, pain, fear, anxiety. So I thought I would dedicate this reading to clarity, assistance, what would be helpful for us to know, to keep in mind, what actions might be beneficial for us all to take in the face of this impending doom. What do we need to see that we're missing? What is the way through that would be helpful for everyone? So that is what I'm seeking from the cards today, and obviously here to offer that to all of you as well. So I'm going to go silent. I'm going to concentrate while I shuffle. I'm just going to say a prayer over these cards. Interesting. So the cards are really sort of validating this pinnacle, this shifting point. We are really at a crossroads, and it, it's we're weighing our options in terms of how we're going to choose to move forward based on, what is arising right now. And that it's turbulent. You can see our friend who is juggling the possibilities. And, the symbolism of the infinity sign is there to remind us that we are always perpetually weighing our options. There is always us standing at the precipice of this or that, here or there. And learning to balance. The other thing about our friend, he's sort of balanced on one foot. In some ways, he reminds me of the person who is doing Tai Chi, who is moving energy from one place to another. And then in the background, we have this turbulent sea, right? The reminder that things go up and down. But it's uneasy. This is unstable. It's not, there is some turbulent weather, some stormy weather that we're having to navigate at this period of time. And it is easy to fall into a state of, of fearful analysis that colors our ability to see things correctly. And that's really being highlighted here in the Eight of Swords. The Eight of Swords is the scary stories that we tell ourselves that are not entirely accurate, that don't have the evidence grounded in sort of uh, present tense circumstances in order for us to become so immobilized by our view. This is really what the Eight of Swords is asking us to stay open to the possibility that the things that we are so afraid of are maybe not catastrophic in the ways that we are thinking, that in some ways it's easy to become paralyzed by this view, this fearful view that doesn't take everything into account, because we can't possibly take everything into account. We can't know how everything is going to play out from this point forward based on the circumstances that are coalescing, right? We can rightfully feel distressed that the people who came together to orchestrate this legislation most definitely did not have the needs of the many in mind when they wrote it. It was really in service of oligarchs, the corporations. Without a doubt, it is reasonable to assume that this isn't going to go well for a lot of people, but we have no idea how that might play out ultimately. That there are possibilities that we cannot account for because none of us have a crystal ball. I read tarot cards for a living, and I always tell people that it is not my business to determine what is going to happen to the letter. That even though this is a divinatory practice, I think of it more as tracking energy in the present, noticing how it is coming together based on actions that have been taken in the past. and gaining insight about how things might play out in the future in order to position ourselves wisely. So again, it's reasonable to assume, this is not the first time in human history that we have had a corrupt empire. And also in history, we have seen over and over again that those empires eventually fail because of that corruption. So it is reasonable to assume, it's something that we've seen before, that when things get bad enough, people revolt. And we don't know what that's going to look like, right? And so this, remember, swords are the seat of thoughts, ideas, communication. And really what the Eight of Swords is asking us to do is be where our feet are at. Instead of projecting into the future some cataclysmic certainty, that we are being asked to just stand in the present moment and do what can be done from this point in order to navigate the stormy seas, right? So, if she were to remove this blindfold and not be captured by her own negative self-talk, what she could see is that in the moment, she is actually safe. She is not being threatened by those swords. She is not going to drown in some deep well of despair. That the bondage that is keeping her constricted is actually pretty loose. That she could probably wiggle her way out of that. And if she were to come into the present moment, she could actually assess what needs to be done from the place where she stands. And I think this is a really important thing to keep in mind, because it's not that there's nothing to be afraid of. And so it's not about spiritual bypassing. It is about acknowledging what we're looking at and the destructive nature of the way things are going in society. All these ICE raids and the continuing to funnel money into building these prisons. It does not look good. It is not going well. And yet, if we become overwhelmed by what that all means, then we cannot act to good purpose. And that is really what the Eight of Swords is asking us to recognize. That if we give into the negative self-talk, then we can't contribute what good we have to offer from the place that we're in. And so it is necessary to understand that every single one of us has met with some challenge in life. And that in having gone through the various difficulties that each one of us has individually, we've gained some kind of wisdom through experience. The Seven of Wands is just acknowledging that when we are operating from a place of fight or flight, again, it's really hard to be able to choose wisely which actions will land most effectively. The Seven of Wands is asking us to consider our past circumstances, but not live from them as though they are happening today. So this idea of acknowledging the trauma that we come from, but being regulated enough in the present moment to operate from the scar and not from the wound. That if we are in a state of fight or flight and we are not calming our central nervous system, then we can't see things clearly and we can't choose our actions wisely. But if we understand that we have a sense of strength, that we know how to confront challenging situations, and that we have the internal resources to do so, then we are free to create something different. We are free to make a world that is different from the one that we come from, that was creating that original wound. So the Seven of Wands is sort of like being in a state of fight or flight, but based on past experience, rather than acknowledging that the place from which we stand now is stable enough for us to take wise action. And again, to really be aware of where our view of the world might be distorted based on operating out of fear. So the way that I usually describe the Seven of Pentacles, it's like you have the soul of a poet, but you think to yourself, nobody makes a living being a poet. I'm going to be a banker instead. And this card is saying that is not going to work out for you at all. It will be like the fruit rotting on the vine. So whatever we do that disowns our deeper soul's calling, it actually undermines our ability to live well, to live resourced, to be prosperous. And so what is being said there? What the Seven of Pentacles is, first of all, trying to get us to see is that each and every one of us comes with a unique gift that we were called to develop in this lifetime. And everybody's gifts look different. And we have been sold a bill of goods specifically in this society, this capitalist society, where we have been asked to trade our labor for money. And we've been told that some labor is worth more than others. And this fear of not having enough has kept us from acknowledging what our gifts are. We've sold ourselves out. Well, you know, I am a visionary, but I can't make a living with that. So I'm going to align with the safe and measured way that society has told me I must embrace. And look, those systems are even crumbling, right? Everybody who decided not to be a poet and instead became a coder is now being replaced by AI. In other words, playing it safe doesn't work, right? Playing by the rules that have been governed by inequitable systems doesn't even work. It doesn't create material safety or internal security. And so what the Seven of Pentacles is asking us to do is look within and actually see what resources we carry with us and to operate out of those instead of disowning our soul's calling. What we are called to do, the work that we are called to do in this world is a contribution to the greater good. And not just about, you know, squirreling away little bits of security for myself. It is about recognizing a bigger, more holistic system where each of us is contributing something vital to the building of the whole. Envisioning a world where each person's contribution is of great value and it perpetuates the success of everyone. That this is the kind of vision that we are being called to operate out of, to have clear sight. Queens and kings, they represent mastery, maturity, operating out of a sense of our own authority, wisdom through experience. And specifically here, again, coming back to our thoughts, to the way that we communicate to one another. The Queen of Swords has learned to wield her sword wisely. She does not use her thoughts or her words on herself like a weapon in the form of being hypercritical, hyper-judgmental, lost in minutia, obsession, fear, criticism. She only uses her thoughts and words for the betterment of herself and others. She sees things clearly because she is not allowing fear to obscure her vision of who she might be and how she might better herself and others through living from a place of divine compassion. Let source be your guide. ACEs are like getting a divine download from the universe. And of course, here we have the representation of love, heart-centeredness. The highest octave of love is love of humanity. It is compassion for self and other. And what the Ace of Cups is reminding us that there's an infinite flow of this compassion that is readily available to all who would wish to receive it. And when we clear the channel of limiting self-beliefs, we can be this conduit for this free flow of love. And that when we're taking actions out of that source energy, then we are much more likely to create a society, to create a community, to create structures of reciprocity, kindness, mutually supportive environments where we are all allowed to thrive. And we just got to take one step at a time in regards to moving in that direction. Because, look, again, it's not to say that things don't feel frightening or look scary at this moment in time, but it's not the whole story. And we can't lose sight of where we're going or what it is that we wish to create because we are taken over by that fear. And so the Two of Wands is about exploring new territory. And you're not going to know every twist and turn on the path to getting to where we ultimately want to go. We don't even know what that looks like right now. But if we allow ourselves to be guided by what is in our hearts, again, guided by the love of humanity, then we can move in the direction towards people, places, opportunities, organizations that elicit that quality of love. And we're just going to take it one step at a time. You can see he has this little world in his hand. He's visioning a new world, and he's setting out to find it. And we're drawing the maps as we go, right? We don't know what this is. We haven't been here yet. And we want to stay open to what and how we need to go in order to get there. So simple steps, one step at a time. Forging a new path. And again, ultimately, always with this understanding that a right and just world feeds everyone. That I'm reading a book right now, which I highly recommend. Makes me feel teary. It's The Serviceberry by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and she wrote a book called Braiding Sweetgrass. And in this book, she talks about a gift economy and how important philosophically that is, and how far away from that we've gotten because of capitalism. This idea that the earth gives freely of her gifts. And instead of thinking of them in terms of a transactional exchange, I'm trading my labor for money and money for food, that when we receive the bountiful gifts of the Earth Mother, that we pay for that receiving of the gift in gratitude. And that in that gratitude, we spread that gift freely amongst others. You know, when I eat of the fruit, I return the seeds back to the earth. And then I become a steward of the earth. Or, you know, when my tree is full and is bountiful in fruit and more than I could ever use, what do? I share with my neighbors rather than have it go to waste. And what that does is it creates this free flow of generosity, right? Where one day when my tree has less fruit, my neighbors then share with me. And it's a sort of an experience or a philosophy that we have moved away from. It's hard for many to conceive of what that might look and feel like. And so any way that we can begin to orient ourselves towards this new vision, this experience of mutual aid, abundant, loving, recursive, regenerative energy in the world, this is what we are being called to do in the face of circumstances that feel frightening. But, you know, be where your feet are at, take right action, don't get knocked off center, continue to practice this free flowing movement of energy, and always direct yourself towards the love. That's what I am doing here today in this reading. I am giving the gift of this reading to all of you, and may you receive this love. Many blessings.